No, there we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Amplify Advocacy. My name is Jeremy Hayer, and I'm a youth engagement coordinator with SPAN. And today I am joined by.
Ryan DeCosta. I'm the youth engagement coordinator for Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. Um, and yeah,
Awesome. Well, it's really good to finally meet with you, Ryan. We've been kind of trying to get this to work for the last couple of weeks, but I'm so glad that it's finally happening here today.
yeah, I'm glad
Um,
we're being able to.
Yeah. Awesome. So before we get started with the questions proper, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? How you became a self-advocate, a youth coordinator, just a little something about yourself.
My journey as like a self-advocate started when I was young, around middle school, having experienced a lot of like mental health related struggles um and being a neurodiverse individual, I really felt like I really wanted a place to be able to share my voice because I think it's so important for people to listen and hear from other people with lived experiences to help make a difference. I had to learn to use my voice to communicate what my struggles were and what I wanted and what I needed. And so that's like a little bit about my story as a self-advocate. It started with specifically with CPAC, Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. It was one of those things where I knew somebody that I was one of my teachers at school, and she started working for CPAC. And so I got involved with our youth advisory board, being between the ages of 14 and 26 that our youth advisory board runs with that age. I got involved with that for a year, and then an opening came for the youth engagement coordinator, and I took that opportunity and I got that job. So that's kind of where I got my foot in the door as far as this line of work with disability advocacy specifically. I can get more into some of the other platforms as well as we start talking, as that I did advocacy work with as well.
It's incredible. What's it like really, being a youth coordinator? Because, I get asked this question a couple of times, but it feels like I can never really get a proper answer down. So I'm curious what you would have to say. What's it like being a coordinator?
I think it's fun and also it can be challenging in its own ways.
Mhm.
So you're definitely working with a variety of different individuals, and as someone with a lived experience, kind of managing your own lived experience and managing your own life because those struggles are still there, while also helping others and navigating how can I make them better advocates in the community or on social media? How can I get more youth to engage in our youth advisory board? And kind of learning how to work with different youth and young adults. And that's for me what it's about. It's really learning to build those leadership skills within the youth that you try to get into being more engaged. I think that's a big challenge, especially when it's you want a variety of individuals with lived experience. And how do I navigate someone with a hearing impairment or a visual impairment? How can I find spaces where they fit? And so that's one of those things where that's my job, is to not only collaborate, obviously, with other people, a part of my team, but it is a small team. And so I have a huge part in working with the youth because the other part of the team works with the younger like the families and the younger individuals. And so it I try to amplify like how can I have people use their voice in whatever medium that may be, whether it's social media, whether it's the podcast, whether it's going out in the community and doing like a panel or speaking on whatever like that topic is, and also building that confidence. So that's some of the many things that I do as far as the engagement piece with the youth, not the like the other extra stuff. Like I do the social media, I work with others on like the newsletter, but the big main component is that engagement with the youth, and finding where they can fit to share their authentic voice and their story amongst professionals that need to be listening.
Yeah, and that's really what first off, very well said. I don't think I could have explained it any better than that. But that really is what it's all about, really, with like that the work that we do. it's not just about talking to the youth. It's not just about, putting like a microphone in front of their face and getting, like their thoughts on the day. It's really about making them feel welcomed and making them understand that they have a voice and getting their unique perspectives on things. This is something that we at SPAN, we've done this with our own sorry, our own youth council. We've also done this with different members on like the youth chat, both our presenters and our attendees as well. And it's very much it's always interesting, I'll say, because we get to meet people from all over the state, some people from outside of the state, of all ages. I know you were talking about how you had a separate team that worked more with like the younger audience. We also have that too. But my work primarily focuses on, more or less like the 14 to 26 range. So
Yeah.
these are young adults that really have they have their own opinions about the world around them. And they're all very unique. Sometimes they're conflicting with each other, but never in like a negative way. And it's really awesome to hear that that also happens within the YAB as well. Just to kind of go back to your story as a self-advocate, um, were there any like significant challenges or obstacles? Were there any people that um, were a problem for you as you became a self-advocate?
I wouldn't say necessarily people being a problem. I just think like societally and stigmatizing wise, as far as someone that's neurodiverse and deals with mental health related issues and also speaks about a variety of different things that have in topics around youth that have talked about like not being heard. I think it's really about like the challenges of believing in your own voice
Hmm.
because many times you don't really understand throughout your journey that your voice really matters and makes a difference. And so I find that one of the biggest challenges is like doubting yourself and not knowing if you're going to make any difference, but really it's about even making a difference in one person's life because you don't need to look at the big picture yet. You're gonna have people that are not going to agree with you. They're gonna have a different um, voice than you, but really owning your story and your experiences. And I had to own mine and learn to be a little bit more like proud of it and less resentful towards it and use those experiences to help shape other people and maybe avoid some issues that maybe I had and I experienced that they could avoid because they are more educated on that topic now. Like for example, I've listened to podcasts where I like felt more heard and seen than I'd ever felt before. And the person on the other end could think like I'm not going to reach a lot of people, but like I'm here sitting there and they have no idea, but that podcast made a difference. That made me understand myself more. I felt heard, I felt seen. And so it's really about learning to own your voice. And I many times doubted myself and had that fear of judgment and rejection, not being heard. So I didn't necessarily have someone tell me that I wasn't like 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 my story wasn't valid, but
Hmm.
it was more about my own personal like doubt within myself. And that did come from lived experiences of just like not people not being very nice or like me just not having that confidence in that. And that was just overall like more so than it was my advocacy and my story. And then also like as an advocate, like not knowing where to start with your voice, like how can I use my voice in a way that's going to impact people? And so and where can I like go in that? And so I can talk more about that as well, how I got like involved with the National Alliance of Mental Illness. That was one of my very big chapters that I did for for Connecticut and I specifically Southeastern Connecticut where I live and going to middle schools and high schools and kind of building that confidence because when you first start, it's very anxiety provoking to talk in front of a group of people. And you're many times are facing systems that aren't built like for you and you're kind of like contradicting what has like society kind of really wants you not to talk about and not want and not highlight and I find it just it's super vulnerable and you might not have everybody agree with you so just really the biggest thing is owning that story, like not isolating away from it, knowing that you like it matters and it's going to matter to somebody. It's not going to matter to everybody in that room, but really building that confidence. And that was difficult for me for a long time.
Incredible. I mean, like that's really, I liked what you said about about like finding podcasts, that made you like feel, like, that you had a voice, that you could like really express yourself. I think podcasting, and we can talk more about it in a second. I think it's a really interesting new kind of media format. Well, not new necessarily, but um, in the way that like, more disabled communities and more communities in general are just trying to have someone or find some outlet that speaks to them. I think podcasting is kind of filled in that niche because it's not, because they're typically, conducted by just, people just like you and I. They're not conducted by corporations. They're not done by like politicians or anything else like that. It's real people talking about real issues, and like it's a format that I really hope gets embraced a bit more in the future. I've been on like a podcast actually before, and it's really interesting because I think because it's unscripted. Um, like kind of like the conversation that we're having mostly. It's more just like two or more people just talking about a specific topic and just getting everyone's opinions on it, which is really important to our work as youth advisors and youth coordinators, because I think a lot of youth struggle to find their voice, and when they do find their voice, in a lot of cases, they sometimes feel like no one's listening, and that no one cares what they're thinking, no one cares how they feel. Um, and again, I think this kind of format of podcasting, having it be of just a regular conversation, I think it allows them to put themselves in the shoes of the hosts and to be like, oh, that's how I was feeling. This is what I've been trying to say for, ever, and no one's been listening to me. So it's
Yeah, I
sorry,
think
I'm
it's
done kind of like
no,
gloating about
I
podcasting
love what
thing.
all of you have to say because this really
Yeah.
is like a podcast in its own way, and that's
Hmm.
really just what a podcast is. It's this back and forth conversation, and I think one other thing I wanted to add from your other question that you just asked too is one of the biggest things of someone with lived experience is that you're going to talk about things that are a lot of times very sensitive, and a lot of times you're putting other people in front of your own like well-being, but you're sharing your experiences. So really like learning to take care of yourself in those ways, like too, like what can I do outside of advocacy work? Because your story isn't your only identity as well. So I like to take that as a learning tool for anybody listening that is in advocacy or wants to pursue advocacy, is making sure that you take care of your own self, like within doing the advocacy work, because you really are it can't be your only thing that you do. And
Right.
it
Hmm.
because your story is a part of it, but you can I know a lot of people, and including myself, that experience so much. It's my life living with a lived experience, and it sometimes consumes you over your other parts of your identity. So really keeping that balance of yourself and your story, and that there's other pieces to your story as well and who you are. So I also wanted to add that because I thought it was an important thing to share.
Yeah, no, definitely it was, and thank you for adding that. I think it's really insightful, and we like part of like one of like the big like reasons like I really want to like do this episode with you was that my colleague Johan Moro Valverde, like he pretty much always sings your praises. So
So, Johan.
that's like one reason alone, but also I knew that you had like a unique story that would be very I guess a good fit for this kind of format, just kind of like you know again, kind of going back to what I was saying about the podcast, about just having a real conversation and about reminding people that there are there are folks, like us, that we don't forget about the people that we've met before. We listen to what they've told us, and we listen to their feedback, their stories, and we try to make it more. We try to incorporate that into the work that we do. So it's just it's really awesome that that we're here talking about this kind of thing today.
Yeah, I think it's
um
amazing. And I honestly think we could do a whole series on
We
this.
could.
I would love to do that. I'm just saying I could talk all day about advocacy in my story and stories I've heard of other people, and just the impact that it really can make, and I've seen it make. And I've seen it with other people that have spoken, even on our youth advisory board. Like professionals being able to listen and really see you is so important. And of course it is about other youth, but like there's so much dialogue that's created around like professionals talking that I just think like the more people that listen, the more that it's going to change the trajectory of maybe the way that they pursue their career and working with youth, the way that they see a lens through the youth eyes, because you might see stuff from a very clinical, very textbook point of view, but when you hear someone else's story in so many different ways and you keep sharing, that really makes a difference on how people pursue professionally, how youth evolve, how parents take the approaches in helping their youth and young adults grow. Because many times there's a lot of fear in holding their child, and it holds their child back, and they don't realize it, but they're just doing what they need to do to protect their kid, but they don't realize that that can cause harm as well. So I just
Mhm.
think there's so many different people that can listen. And if we did a series, I think that would be cool because there's so many different topics that can be talked about and that need to be listened to and heard. And so that's just my stance on it. I know that you probably have more questions, but I could keep
No, no,
going.
but thank you for sharing that. I think I first off, I think it's absolutely true that we could do a whole series on this, on like just as like one talking point alone. Um, but yeah, no, definitely thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Um, so actually, we've been talking about, sharing each other's like stories and like, kind of like talking with the youth. But like I kind of want to, again, bring it kind of back to you. Um, who have there been anyone in like your life that's been supportive of not only your journey of becoming self-advocate, but supportive of you sharing your story? And if there are people that have been supportive in that way, how have they been supportive?
I've been very lucky in the amount of support that I've received, and a lot of it is from not only family and friends, but the organizations that I've been a part of that have helped me grow and then
Mhm.
led me, and the people that have led me on this journey to like being in the job that I am now, which not many people have the opportunity to do, and the amount of people that I've been able to meet in different organizations as well. So like I started off like in support groups for NAMI, for the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Connecticut, in my town in Niantic. And so they got me in the foot in the door for their young adult speaking opportunities, and I traveled all over Connecticut and middle schools, high schools, and colleges, speaking about my lived experience and um, with living with the mental health conditions. And then I also, of course, like where I work, the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, when I started off the Youth Advisory Board, that whole year of really building my confidence and understanding like what the Youth Advisory Board is about and meeting other people and getting these opportunities that I have such a huge list of things that I've already done even before I started just working for CPAC. I also did a lot of volunteering with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they're just a lot of supportive people that really like nudged me in the direction of continuing my passion of advocacy work. As those people encouraged me, and as I heard their stories, it only grew the amount of opportunities I really wanted to continue to have and the confidence building. Because if I didn't have these people in my life, I honestly believe like I wouldn't want to continue advocacy. Because if you don't have good experiences and you don't have those people encouraging like you to want to grow, like a lot of times it really just especially when your story is really difficult, and many times there's been obstacles that have made me um not like want to do a lot of things and pursue a lot and really like brought down my confidence. So like when people really do encourage it, it helps a lot. And I have shared my story with countless mental health professionals along the way. And those people that have also, the mental health professionals that have also supported me in as far as like my therapists that I've had over the years and support systems. So I'm really like grateful for all the people in my life that have had it. I'm very lucky. Not everybody has that. But I also think it's important for people listening that don't have that to know that there is people out there that they will fit in with, and that there are spaces everywhere that anybody can find that they will fit. So it's really about finding your tribe, or your people that are out there to encourage you, because not everybody in your path is going to be, but that doesn't mean that there's not people out there that will.
I love that. I love the way you phrase that, you know, how there's a place that everyone can fit into. You know, it's really I think, you know, that's really important um for not only like the youth that we work with, but I think it's also important for you know like parents and siblings and for those that are um you know like friends with people who have disabilities. I think a lot of times they either get so focused on helping out their loved one with their own journey that they neglect their own, or they feel that they don't have a place in that loved one's journey, that they're going to be a problem or in the way, that they don't have a place. And that's you know, that first off, that's demonstrably untrue. There's a place for everybody. Um, and I think it's important for, you know, people like you and I to just remember and you know to really push for everyone involved you know, in the work that we do and all the families and the friends and you know, coworkers, everybody involved, that they have a voice too. It doesn't always need to be about the youth that have the disability in question, but also for those that are part of that youth support network, for those that care about the youth, that want to see that youth succeed. Um, you know, it's always hard whenever like I meet like a dad or like a cousin or something, and they're like, oh no, it's all about them. You know, I'm just here. I'm just like I drop them off or like something like that. Like they don't want to sound they don't want to like I guess be like you know taking up the attention for lack of a better term, but you know without them you know the youth that they're so supportive of they probably wouldn't be in the position that they are then they're not going to be set up for success or anything. So yeah, no, that was just again wonderfully put. I think you should have my job because you can really explain this stuff a lot better than me.
Yeah, no, you're
um,
awesome at what you do, and I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate being able to speak about these topics. So you're giving me opportunities to be able to share and spread
mhm.
information in my story and empower people. So your job is very important, and you're part of a really amazing organization, and your role is valuable. So don't discourage yourself, for I definitely love like collaborating with you, and I that's one of the amazing things about networking and sharing stories and like learning how, like, because before, like, I start off this work and I don't know anybody. You go to a conference, you go somewhere, and you're like, I have no idea who any of these people are, and all of a sudden you're a year into it and you know like half to three-fourths of the people in the room, and it's one of those things where it's like, wow, I did grow and expand, because those bits and pieces of people you meet along the way, like they start to know you, they start to hear your voice, they start to really resonate with what you have to say. And so every role is valuable and important, and we all have the same goal of empowering youth. And so everybody has a part to play.
Thank you. Um, you know, I really appreciate that. Okay, so I think I think honestly we're probably just going to jump to our last question. But last but certainly not least, I'll say that. And that is, do you think it's important for others to share their experiences?
Oh, absolutely. It's so important for people to share their experiences. And I feel this on a deep level. Like, it really helps you feel less alone.
Mhm.
And you build that community in sharing your experiences, and you build those connections with others that have experienced it. And so I think feeling less alone is a huge component. And also, like, it breaks stigma and creates a lot of understanding around those topics that nobody maybe has heard before. and it will help your own personal stigma that you might have around those issues. Because before, I remember all I heard was stigmatization around like depression and anxiety and other like I live with borderline personality disorder, and like so much stigma was around it that it almost makes you discouraged. Like, am I ever going to get better? Am I going to live an authentic life? And you kind of are breaking down those walls many times if you by using your voice, and it helps not only you but the people around you. And it really, using your voice, it gives you that permission to speak up. You're able to be brave enough to share your story when you are, and you create a space where others can do the same. And sometimes people just need to see someone else like go first and be able to share, and that will lead someone to be able to share their story as well. I remember in the youth advisory board, a lot of panels we'd go to, and a lot of youth advisory board members would be anxious and nervous, and over time, it really like as they saw others speak and they started using their voice, it really like led the way to give other youth like almost permission, but not to feel like they can use their voice, because if they're able to do it, like I can too. And not only that, like overall, it creates change. It's like you're using your voice to empower somebody, and it's not going to be everybody in the room. It's not gonna be this huge thing yet, but it's gonna grow and it's going to expand. And I also think as a person that has lived experience, it helps you heal and grow in a way that's different from traditional ways of therapy. Everybody has gone through all these therapies or treatments or ways to work on themselves. And yes, it's from a clinical perspective, but this is a different way of healing and growing as a person. And you're really showing a lot of strength and vulnerability in doing so. And being open and honest like that shows like it's not weakness to do that. It takes a lot of courage. And that is something that as an advocate and as somebody who didn't have a lot of and really has had and continues to have a lot of healing and growing that needs to be done, and being able to be vulnerable, it really helps you like learn to speak your truth. And there's a lot with using your voice that will long term be beneficial, and that's still where that taking care of yourself on the side comes in. um Everyone has a story to share, and everyone's story matters, and you never know who might need to hear yours. And that's really like the main component of advocating.
Yeah, and that's again, that's really what it's all about. Um, hmm. I think that's honestly the most perfect way that we can kind of like end like the conversation that we're having today. Although I will say before we like really wrap up, I do want to kind of I guess push this one mini question or shout out or sponsor, whatever you want to call it. Um, I know you're part of CPAC and YAB and sorry, YAB, whichever we're calling it now. But are there any other like organizations that you're a part of? Are there any projects that you want to do like a quick shout out or anything? We're gonna
Um,
include the links to any of them in the YouTube description, by the way, so you don't have to
yeah,
worry about that.
I am part of a best youth initiative where it's to help improve unemployment rates for people with disabilities in the state of Connecticut. I've also like traveled all over, and also being involved with NAMI and being able to go to middle schools and high schools all over and share your individual experience living with a mental health condition. And I've also been a part of a landscape analysis to improve mental health services in
Mhm.
schools all over Connecticut. So I've had a lot of different opportunities, and these initiatives and organizations and different things that I've been able to do are going to help in a larger scale create change, and many of these things you can be a part of. So, yeah.
Awesome, fantastic. And on social media, do you have any social media? And if you do, what's the best way that people can reach out to you?
We have a link tree, and or the Instagram is the most popular one because a lot of young adults aren't on Facebook, but we try to grow
Yes.
that platform as well. Um, but we have a link tree that I can provide also in the links that we can have for the description that you'll put in there.
Of
And
course.
that link tree will bring you to everything that we have, including to sign up for the youth advisory board, and also like register for the actual Zoom meetings for the YAB meetings that are every second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. And it'll give you all the different information. We have a blog. We have a lot that we're slowly growing and expanding. It takes time, but there's different ways but that link tree will bring you to everything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ryan, for jumping on and sharing your wonderful story and all your experiences and advice with me today and the audience today. I think everyone watching this appreciates it immensely.
Well, it's been amazing being on, and I hope we can grow and do more things together like this.
Of course, of course. Yeah, we're definitely gonna try to collaborate more in the future. I can promise you that. And and yeah, okay. So thank you all so much for watching another episode of Amplify Advocacy. I really appreciate it. Everything that me and all organizations and all the links that me and Ryan talked about, they're going to be included in the description down below. And also, if you want to reach out to myself, my contact information is there as well. Once again, thank you all so much for being a part of the conversation, and we'll see you here next time.